Hi everyone, welcome or indeed welcome back to the channel. If you are new, don't forget to hit subscribe because today it's another naked face situation, which means it's a foundation test. It feels like I've not done a foundation test in ages. The last one I did was the Ordinary Coverage Foundation and I think that was about a month ago, but I have got a load of foundations that I still want to test. Some of them were put to one side because of the Ordinary foundations coming out. One of the ones that I put to one side I've had for about 2 months and I'm so excited about trying it. I feel like when this foundation first launched not that long ago, there were a lot of people in the beauty community that were really excited about it, particularly if you've got oily skin like I have. And there are people that I really know and trust within the beauty community that do amazing reviews, and they were all saying it was great. So I thought to myself, right, I need to get my hands on it. The foundation that I'm going to be testing out today is the new Giorgio Armani foundation and it's called Power Fabric. I ended up picking a sample of this, here it is, because this stuff is rather spendy, as you would expect from Giorgio Armani. So if you've not heard of this foundation before and want to know a little bit more about it from the official website, let's just have a quick look so we can have a look at shades and application and all that kind of stuff, and then we'll pop some on my face and see what all the fuss is about. So here we have the Giorgio Armani Power Fabric Foundation. They're headlining it as a long wear high coverage foundation with an SPF of 25, and you can see there it's getting a pretty good high average review rate from customers on the website. It will set you back £40 and I'm assuming that's for a standard 30ml, but it doesn't actually say how much you get here on the website. And then in terms of a further description of it, it's a liquid foundation that teams long wear full coverage with a luminous lightweight second skin finish, which sounds pretty perfect to me actually in terms of what I'm looking for in a foundation. It should melt into my skin, weightlessly concealing the appearance of imperfections and creating a long-lasting, no makeup feel. Just like an Armani jacket, which is a timeless wardrobe essential, I certainly don't have one. Power Fabric has been created for a successful, confident, modern and elegant woman. This full coverage foundation dresses the skin, enhances the look of facial features and targets the appearance of fatigue. That sounds good. And it comes in 15 shades and there's the descriptions of them there. But actually looking at the colours online, that is the deepest, and to me that doesn't seem to look very deep. Bit of a glitchy website, that's lovely. The formula is adapted for each shade to deliver optimal coverage that illuminates the appearance of the complexion without creasing or fading. And with the SPF 25 filter, Power Fabric is a long-lasting foundation that offers effective daily UVB protection. And it's been inspired by two iconic Armani formulas, which is Maestro Fusion and Eye Tint. And in terms of the Maestro Fusion inspiration, it should leave a non-greasy effect, which delivers a long-lasting luminous glow. And then the inspiration from the Eye Tint liquid eyeshadow is it being a full coverage foundation that contains a suspension of pigments to help boldness of colour. And just to summarise, in terms of the benefits, it's the first full coverage and long wearing foundation with a lightweight finish. It will give an all day long impeccable luminous complexion in any circumstance. And just to check, in terms of how to apply it, I need to use the blender brush to apply for a sophisticated, perfect full coverage, spread on from the centre of the face and blend outward. Dab lightly with fingertips wherever necessary to further blend. And then they're also selling me a lip colour there. And just out of interest, what does this blender brush look like? I don't like foundation brushes that are like this. The very traditional kind of paintbrush style foundation brushes where you just kind of paint it on your face. I don't really like those. I think I do have one somewhere, but I reserve it more for applying face masks. And it's £60! Wow. Okay. So if you are new to my foundation test videos, I'll just give you a little bit of information about myself and then we'll get into the application. Obviously I am a glasses wearer, but I have yet to find a foundation that copes well under glasses, and you know it doesn't really massively bother me anyway, but I do wear glasses. In terms of my skin type, I am generally oily, but I also suffer from dryness in my chin area. I have mature skin with fine lines, some deeper lines across my forehead, as well as some hyperpigmentation issues across my forehead. I have some scarring that needs to be covered. I've got some healing spots on my chin, so there's definitely stuff there that needs to be covered, as well as having probably pretty typical skin in terms of stuff that needs help. I also have some pretty impressive pores across my nose and this part of my cheek area too. In terms of application of foundation, I always have a sponge on hand as well as a brush. This is a flat top kabuki brush from Zoeva. It's the Zoeva 104, and this is just a L'Oreal makeup sponge, but anything you're curious about, I always make sure it's included in the description box down below if you want some more information. The last thing that's worth mentioning before we get started is I don't use primer at all, so I've just literally washed my face and moisturised it, and the moisturiser's been sinking in for quite a nice long time now. But other than that, that's it. No primer, no setting powder, just purely because I want to see how the foundation will perform on its own first before I start experimenting too much with it. So like I said, this is the sample that I've got, so this should be good for a few uses, I would have thought. The shade that I picked up was 3.5, which I did research a lot. I checked a lot of photos and videos, and it seemed like a really good match until I got this in my hand and look at the colour of it. Unfortunately, the camera does wash colour out a little bit, so I have done some cutaways just showing you some swatches against other foundations that I've got, and I think from this you'll be able to see that this is an interesting colour considering it's pretty low down in the shades that you can pick up. I'm hoping I can pull this off today because it's looking pretty dark. Obviously, in terms of application, I am going a little bit against the grain in terms of what they suggested, but I really don't like those type of foundation brushes anyway. I used to use them, but I find them to be very streaky, so I much prefer to use a flat top kabuki like this or some kind of sponge. So I'll do one half of my face with each of these just to see if it makes any difference at all. Right, I think let's get you zoomed in a little bit more and we'll pop some on my face. Okay, so this is going to be a true test of colour matching now. I am nervous. Not as nervous as when I did the Too Faced Born This Way foundation in, was it vanilla? It was very yellow, so I'm slightly less nervous than when I did that review. Let's just go for it. Let's just pop it on the face. I might be able to get away with this. It smells like kind of talcum powder, like some kind of scented old lady talcum powder. It's not over strong, but it's got a real kind of, actually it's more of an SPF smell, and it is a fairly high SPF, but it certainly does blend into the skin really nicely. And actually, although I was terrified of the swatch and how it was looking, I don't think it's looking too bad. We shall see. It's always different when I've done my full face and then I look in the mirror and I just think. Because of the fact that it is a mattifying foundation, I'll be interested to see how it copes with my oily area, which is generally my T-zone. My forehead is particularly bad, but also the dryness and texture issues I've got down here, just to see if it clings at all. It does seem to be evening things out fairly well. I can still see some hyperpigmentation peeking through here, and I can still see some spots and stuff, so I'm just going to see if I can actually build it up to be a little bit more full, and I think I'll have a go at stippling. Happily, it does seem to give you a fairly decent amount of time to get it on the skin instead of drying really quickly, so that's nice. Okay, yeah, that's a lot better. I'm just going to do the same with my forehead and the hyperpigmentation. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with how that's looking now. I think you can probably see that it has evened out things quite nicely. I'm actually really pleasantly surprised with the shade match, because when I did those swatches on my arm, I was instantly very nervous about putting this on my face, but I think I can just about get away with it. It doesn't seem to be settling into pores or any dryness or anything. Right, I'm going to do the other side of my face now, and I'm going to use the sponge this time. All I've used so far on this side of my face is just what was in the lid, so I don't feel as though I've had to use that much, but now I'm dipping my finger in the actual pot. I did mention this in one of my previous foundation test videos, but personally I quite like to lay down a very light layer of foundation first by just sweeping a sponge over my face, and then I kind of build it up from there. It can be a really nice way of just getting a very quick and light layer of coverage down. Okay, so that's a very, very light layer done. I'm just going to go and build up in a few places. You see how well it's actually just covered that scar I've got on my cheek. This is the bane of my life at the moment. It's in such an awkward area because when I put blush and powder on, it tends to just sweep product away that I've used to cover it up. In terms of coverage, I don't think there's a massive difference in terms of what coverage I'm getting from the brush to the sponge. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with how that's looking. I don't think it made a massive difference in terms of application and how it's looking, but I think I prefer how it actually blended out with the brush. I think it's a really nice, easy one to blend, and the brush just seemed to make the job that bit quicker. But I think it's actually looking okay colour-wise, amazingly. What I will do now is I'll just quickly finish the rest of my makeup, and I will be back in a second just to let you know how it's feeling, and we'll check to see how it's looking. My face feels oddly sticky. It's been about 10 minutes or so since I applied the foundation, and yeah, my face is feeling sticky, which is a bit weird. Maybe some powder would help with that, I'm not sure. I've also got a fair bit of shine going on my nose at the moment, but in terms of how it's actually looking, I'm actually really pleased, thank goodness. I think the shade match is a good match for me, in spite of it looking unbelievably orange in the swatch that I did. In terms of coverage, I wouldn't have said that it was an easy full coverage. I think there are other foundations that give a very full coverage a lot easier than this, so if you're looking for a full coverage foundation, it is buildable to a certain extent, but there are areas like my hyperpigmentation that are still showing through slightly, so it didn't really offer me that full coverage that I was expecting necessarily. That being said, I do actually like how it looks. I think it's looking very natural and quite pretty. It's just really the weird kind of sticky situation that I'm not sure about. When it came to putting blush on, it was quite tricky just having to kind of tap it into the right place instead of being able to really buff it into the skin like I usually do, because it did feel as though my brush was really dragging on the skin because of that sticky feeling. But maybe it just needs a little bit longer to dry down. Maybe it would benefit from a powder, but like I said, I do like to try and keep this as straightforward as possible for the first test. So this is how it's looking at the moment, and I am pretty pleased with it. So I now feel as though I can actually set foot out the door without having too much of an orange face, so that's good. I'll just zoom you out a little bit more again so you can see it from a distance too. I'm now going to get on with the rest of my day, but I will see you at the end of the day, just before I'm about to remove this, just to let you know how I've got on, how it's wearing, has it kept me matte all day, is it looking good? We will keep everything crossed, but I will see you at the end of the day and let you know how I've got on. Okay, so it is the end of the day for me. I will be shortly removing this makeup in probably about an hour or so's time. Current wear time is about 7.5, 8 hours, but in all honesty, I turned into quite the greasy mess after about only 3 hours, and I've taken some footage of that just to show you because, oh my goodness, the shiny situation that was going on my face. Let's just take my glasses off. I haven't really looked in the mirror since then, so let's assess the damage. I don't know whether you can see in this lighting, but I have taken some pictures. There is a huge amount of glowiness going on right now, and it's kind of at the point of where I feel quite uncomfortable about how glowy my face is, and I don't think the camera is truly picking that up. I am extremely shiny on my forehead. My nose is like some kind of beacon of shine, and these parts of my cheeks are really shiny as well, and even the tip of my chin is shiny, and that's not something that often happens because this is my dry area. So I'm thinking of the fact that they describe this foundation as being a matte but luminous finish. So if this is what they had in mind, and this is the kind of finish that you want from a foundation, then you may well like it. But for me, as an oily girl, it's just like alarm bells going off. In terms of the staying power of the fact that it said it was quite a long wearing foundation, I can see my blush. I think that's hung in there really nicely. I think the coverage is still pretty decent. It has worn off a little bit on my chin, and quite a lot more of my hyperpigmentation is showing through on my forehead, so it's definitely worn off in places, but it does seem to have worn off fairly gradually. It doesn't seem to have gathered in any dry areas. I don't think it's settled into pores. The place where I usually get it, if it does, is my sort of temple area, but I can't seem to see anything there. And it has worn off on my nose a little bit as well, but I generally get that with foundations anyway, and I think that's just part of being an oily skinned girl, unfortunately. Just out of curiosity, I did bring some NYX blotting sheets with me. I've not actually touched this foundation up all day because I was kind of curious to see how glowy it would get and whether the situation would get any worse or not. So let's see how bad it is. Yeah, it's looking pretty bad. Okay, so using a couple of blotting sheets has really improved the situation, and it suddenly feels a lot more comfortable, and we're back into sort of the normal realms of shine. So I think this could be a foundation that you'd be able to easily touch up throughout the day and actually make it look pretty flawless again, because not that much foundation come off on the sheets. It was actually quite minimal. I just spotted whilst I was blotting, it has actually settled into some pores on this side of my face, and this was the brush side, whereas on the sponge side it's not actually done that. So that's the only difference that I can really see in terms of application and wear for using different types of application methods. Overall, I do like the look of this. There was something about it that when I looked in the mirror after applying it when I was doing the rest of my makeup, and I just thought it looks like a really good, solid, nice coverage foundation. Definitely not full coverage, but just a nice level of coverage that I'm looking forward to experimenting with different products just to see if we can deal with this kind of shiny situation and pore situation as well. That sticky feeling that I said about when I'd first applied it didn't really go away as such. It did improve, but it was still definitely there, and it was kind of one of those situations that if I was maybe on the phone to someone for a long time, I'm sure if I took my phone away I'd probably just take half of my face with it as well, because it did feel very sticky and it wasn't a particularly pleasant feeling to feel on the skin. But I do like how it looks, and I'm quietly confident that I think with the right combination of primer and maybe a setting powder that this could actually look really nice. So I'm not completely put off, unlike the last time I tried a Giorgio Armani foundation. But with this one, I am actually quite looking forward to experimenting with it, having a play around with it, because at the moment I do definitely think it has potential. I think it has demonstrated the fact that it is a fairly long wearing formula in certain areas, and hopefully the areas where it has worn off a little bit more, that will be massively improved with a primer, because in all of the application videos and stuff that I watched on their own website, they used a primer every single time. But I don't like to skew these things on my first test. I just like to see what potential it has, and then I'll have a mess around with it. In summary, I think this is an expensive foundation, and I'm not overly convinced that as it stands it's worth the money for me personally. I am going to have to experiment finding the right combination of products to go underneath and over the top, and obviously that's just going to make the whole face base price thing even more expensive than the £40 that this retails for as it is. So unless I have some amazing success when it comes to experimenting with this and manage to make it look absolutely phenomenal, I'm not sure if I would bother getting the full size of this foundation, unfortunately. I am gutted because I had quite high hopes because of how popular it seemed to be. But it's just that price tag. It does seem like a lot of money, and I think obviously part of that is the name, the fact that it's Giorgio Armani. It's a very luxurious product, and to me, I want something a little bit more than just a name. I want something to really deliver for that kind of price tag, and unfortunately this just did not quite do it for me. So I think that about sums it up for this video today. I've really enjoyed testing a foundation out again. It does feel like it's been a little while since I've done it, and I really enjoy the process. So I really hope that you guys too, because I do find it a lot of fun. If you did enjoy this video and found it useful, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up down below, because it does really help support my channel. And if you are new and would like to subscribe to see more content like this from me in the future, I will pop a button just here so you can click it and get notified of new content as and when it gets uploaded. And if you've not seen my last video, I will pop a link to that one just up here so you can click it and check that one out too. Anyway, I hope you're all really well, and I will see you again soon. Bye!